folks, welcome to today's Crease Brownbag. My name is Bart Redford. I want to welcome you on behalf of the Center for Russian, East European, and Eurasian Studies. Thanks, Adrian. I'm going to dispense with the usual, telling you what other things that we've got planned for the week, although we do have quite a bit scheduled, including a film actually that we're going to be showing up at Edwards campus. I just want to mention that we have a special guest today, Ivan Ribada from he is the Senior Vice President of the German Marshall Fund of the United States, and he'll be speaking, of course, this evening at 7:30 at the Dole Institute on a very timely topic, East European democracy and Russian reemergence. Our speaker today is Dr. Mariya Omelicheva, who is in political science, but also the director of CREASE. Her research interests include Eurasian security, as well as counterterrorism and human rights, and she has just produced a new book, edited a book on Central Asia called Nationalism and Identity Construction in Central Asia, Dimensions, Practices, and Directions. She's speaking today on a topic that I'm sure deserves some attention, which is Turkmenistan's national image and identity.
Thank you, Bart.
Yeah, I had to make a plug-in for this new volume that is coming out in a couple of weeks in December of 2014. It's been in works for a number of years. It grew out of a panel that we put together with my colleagues for an International Studies Association annual meeting. So anyone who is teaching nationalism and identity construction or interested in doing research or writing paper, it turned out to be a very, very strong volume. And we originally had another scholar who was tasked with a chapter on Turkmenistan, but things happen. I learned a lot by editing volumes, so she couldn't write it, and I took on something that comes outside of my expertise, which mostly focuses on Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan in Central Asia. But nonetheless, I can honestly say that I'm pleased with how it turned out, how this research turned out. So, as Bart said, this is on Turkmenistan's nation branding, building positive international image. Okay, so after the death of the former president of Turkmenistan, Saparmurat Niyazov, in December 2006, Turkmenistan's reputation as one of the most oppressive regimes in the world remains unchanged. Okay, and the current president of Turkmenistan, Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov, please pardon me, Berdimuhamedov, I'll probably be like by the end of the presentation, has really been trying very hard to change this reputation of Turkmenistan, to break with the isolationist tendencies prevalent during the time of Niyazov, for a number of reasons. Of course, to attract foreign investments, but also tourists, and expand or increase its political power, if you wish, in international politics. Okay, so. Before I move on to kind of talk specifically about the brand that's been constructed by the Berdimuhamed's government in Turkmenistan, I would like to say a few words about the importance of nation branding in international politics. So international images have always been important to states, but they've obtained even greater significance in the post-Cold War era. The processes of accelerated economic globalization, rapid dissemination of information, accompanied by the spread of neoliberal values and the rise of commercialism, encouraged the emergence of new norms and expectations about the proper forms of government. So states really try to portray themselves as compliant, or that their behavior and their image is consistent with all those neoliberal norms and expectations and capitalist norms and expectations. And when I talk about global politics in the context of nation branding and image making, I like to compare global politics to global marketplace. So using this metaphor of world politics as marketing, whatever states try to attract investments, foreign aid, tourists, and whatever they try to export, products, services, or culture, can be done with a much bigger premium if the state's image is positive and strong, okay? So, in short, a state image serves a number of important functions in international politics. First one is a diagnostic. What it means is that we get bombarded with so much information, so we are very selective in what we get, what we remember, and especially when it comes to foreign policies or global politics and other states, we have a tendency to rely on the shortcuts of the pieces of information about those destinations. So in this crowded informational space where people and organizations are besieged with new data, there is very limited time and ability to seek and acquire in-depth and informative views about other states. So states' images are used to navigate this very complex world of modern international relations, okay? So these images, these shortcuts, become internalized prior to the most rudimentary factual knowledge about places. So those images are not necessarily correct, oftentimes, but they just serve this as an informational shortcuts, gives us the sense that we know something about a place. They serve the function of a soft power tool that help a state to achieve the state's policy goals in international relations. So those states that have attractive images can also, like through the pool of popular culture or attractive political institutions or economic and technological developments, they will also be much more adept at exercising their national power as well. So positive images also serve this soft power function. For the Central Asia in particular, if you talk to your friends, colleagues, people from the community, how many of them will be able to name all 5 stands? How many of them will be able to put those stands on the map? So for the so-called unmapped states, state images also serve the function of putting on the map unmapped territories. In other words, state images help to promote obscure, distant, and therefore unattractive places into reliable, welcoming, and attractive destinations. So again, this is just some of the functions that state imagery serves as a way of making the case that international images of states are really important. And for this particular project, I've used the notion of nation branding to discuss the international imagery constructed by the Turkmen government. Okay, so introduced in the toolkit of states' public relations campaigns in the mid-1990s, nation branding describes the process of constructing and promoting a favorable image about the state and its people to the rest of the world. Okay, a nation brand can be thought of as a shortcut, but a shortcut that is created by the state itself through the PR campaign, with the goal of creating this desirable picture. And this image encapsulates complex reality, including culture, history, politics, people, and other distinguishing features of that particular state. So that this image promotes favorable associations, favorable descriptions. So this is just some of the examples of the visual representation in images of various states. And this is the hectagon that was developed by Enholt and team. So this image making and nation branding has become an industry of its own. There is voluminous literature on how to create a favorable nation brand. There are teams of public relation experts out there who is going to help the government to develop positive image for the international consumption. There is a country brand index that is produced by the authors of this nation brand hectagon, and the various components that go into the making of the positive state image are included into the hectagon there. Okay, so yes, there is a country brand index. So it has been turned into an industry of its own, and a lot, if not all states, they work with the public relations groups to develop a brand, to develop a positive state image. And Central Asia is no exception, okay? All Central Asian governments have resorted to PR organizations, mostly located in the West. And Kazakhstan has championed this initiative, especially in the aftermath of the production of the infamous movie Barat. So those of you, whenever I travel abroad and I turn on a BBC or CNN or any of the Western channels, I almost inevitably will see a commercial on Kazakhstan as the heart of Eurasia or something similar. So the Kazakh government has invested a lot of money into the PR campaign to create this positive image, positive brand for the international consumption. And Turkmenistan is a latecomer to this nation branding industry, but nonetheless, it has been trying to catch up. And based on my analysis of the documents on the images, the official images produced by the government, and a number of other sources, I've identified the following components that, in my view, constitute the brand of Turkmenistan. And in the rest of the presentation, I will kind of go over these components and point out some things about what the government of President Berdimuhamed has been doing. So, foreign policy of positive neutrality has been showcased as the country's national brand. Then Turkmenistan as a new Central Asian Kuwait has become a very conspicuous theme, emphasizing Turkmenistan's energy potential and attractiveness to foreign investors. Then Turkmenistan's age-old heritage of monumental culture and crafts has been woven into its international identity. And interestingly, you will find a lot of rhetoric, lots of discourse, official discourse dedicated to the promotion of idea of Turkmenistan as modern, democratic, progressive state. Okay, and so I'll talk about each of these elements of Turkmenistan's brand next. Okay, so positive neutrality. So as all of you probably know, the foreign policy of positive neutrality was introduced by the former president Niyazov back in 1994. There are different explanations as to why, but by the way, are you familiar with what positive neutrality is? So it was just in a way of staying away from uncomfortable alliances and not letting, or staying away from being subsumed under the influence of Russia. So it's a policy that allowed, and it's a policy recognized by the United Nations. So it's officially recognized by the United Nations. So it's a policy that allows Turkmenistan to not become a member of military alliances, be very selective if join at all any regional organizations. But it was introduced way back in 1994. And under Niyazov, the policy resulted in, like I said, into almost complete isolation of Turkmenistan from the rest of the international community, whereas the Berdimuhamedov government turned this policy of permanent neutrality into a national brand of Turkmenistan and a linchpin of its ample international project. It has become framed as part of the new era for a new country, and it was symbolizing the change from the isolationist tendencies in the past to becoming kind of an active member of the international community. So one of the most noticeable changes that has occurred since Berdimuhamedov became a president, it has been this torrent of international activity. I mean, I've been kind of following Turkmenistan development for a while, and I've read a lot of literature. I've never seen Turkmenistan being so active internationally. The previous president has never been so internationally active as Berdimuhamedov has become. So the government of President Mirziyoyev supported conferences, forums, diplomatic summits on a variety of topics ranging from energy and sustainable development to environmental risks, refugees in the Muslim world, and so on and so forth. Mirziyoyev has visited, I don't remember exact statistics, in the first couple of years as a president, he's visited like 60 or 70 different states and accepted delegations from many more nations. And again, this is just a selective few, just again, the purpose is to show how vibrant, much more active the foreign policy of Turkmenistan has become. One interesting change that has occurred is as follows. So the Berdimuhamedov government has tried to create a stronger international appreciation for the principle of positive neutrality in international affairs, and with it, a greater recognition of Turkmenistan exemplifying it. So let me repeat it. So it's a very interesting nuance change in using positive neutrality as a linchpin of its foreign policy and as a national brand. So Turkmenistan, the government of Turkmenistan has been trying to elevate this certain way of doing foreign policy, the positive neutrality, staying away from the military alliances, yet being a very active member of international community and contributing to selective areas of international relations through this notion of positive neutrality. And by elevating the notion of positive neutrality, Turkmenistan, but in virtue of association with positive neutrality that Turkmenistan embodies and personifies, Turkmenistan hopes to elevate its stature in international politics as well. So kind of, it's a smart gesture. One of the manifestations, one of the examples of this very active, much more active engagement in international and regional affairs has been chairmanship of Turkmenistan of the Commonwealth of Independent States. Okay, so Turkmenistan under Niyazov stayed away from all regional associations spearheaded by Russia. Okay. It did become an associate member of the CIS in 2005. However, it was on paper only. All of the Turkmenistan participation in the CIS activities was nominal. So this 2012 chairmanship of the CIS by Turkmenistan was indeed an unprecedented event in the 20-year history of this organization. And according to the government, I quote, "This event was designed to signify a new chapter in the relations of friendship and cooperation that have existed for centuries among the CIS states." Okay? And preceding the chairmanship, Turkmenistan carried out a very significant PR campaign through the publication of volumes on history and modernity of Turkmenistan, the Turkmen government. If you, out of curiosity, if you ever Google Turkmenistan, you will see very few portals out of Turkmenistan itself, or just very few official Turkmen sites. It was right around that time when the Turkmen government launched a unique electronic resource called Turkmenistan.ru and an international magazine called Turkmenistan that is published both in English and Russian, and it is registered in Russia. And the Turkmenistan.ru is also registered in Russia. So these two services played the function of an official informational news agency for Turkmenistan. And they claim to provide timely news and news analysis on foreign policy. But also the idea was that through those channels, Turkmenistan wanted to dispel with whatever myth or misinformation or misunderstandings. So kind of break from the past and move into the future with this, new Turkmenistan's identity, new image. A part of this foreign policy of positive neutrality that aims to elevate Turkmenistan's image and stature in international relations. Remember that it is done through positioning a country as a leader in various selective areas of international politics. Because Turkmenistan's strengths lie in where? Energy, right? So it has been trying to present itself as a leader in global energy security, and I would say fairly successfully. So Turkmenistan has managed to push through the United Nations a couple of resolutions, kind of to muster support of other nations, to set up a framework that will ensure uninterrupted and secure transportation of energy. And on the backdrop of the work for those UN resolutions, the Turkmen government also put together a number of international forums on this same topic. So they've been very active and fairly successful in, or at least successful in terms of, the actual documents produced and meetings held to position themselves as leader in global energy security, leading the way to set up an international regional security and as a mediator in the interregional energy dialogue under the United Nations auspices. And I'm moving on to the second aspect of the brand, which is portraying Turkmenistan as new Kuwait, but overall increasing its market attractiveness. Of course, lots of resources has been spent on PR to promote Turkmenistan's attractiveness to investors in the energy field. But Berdimuhamedov, one of the first things that he did, he allowed for the independent audit of the major energy field, oil fields. So during the first year of his presidency, Berdimuhamedov commissioned the first independent audit of the South Yolatan Osman field that showed to the rest of the world how much gas deposits Turkmenistan has. So one of the problems with attracting investors into the gas sector is that, well, there are lots of problems, but one is that they didn't know where it was. The overall, the legislation was not, no tax breaks, or so the internet works really poorly. So and under Niyazov, a lot of investors left Uzbekistan because the government unilaterally changed their contracts. So Berdimuhamedov, once he commissioned the audit and published the results, set up a conference where he proclaimed a new open door policy in the energy sector and invited a number of foreign companies to invest their capital into the development of Turkmenistan's reserves of gas. He promised and fulfilled partially this initiative to adopt a legislative foundation that will be consistent with international norms and offered equal conditions and possibilities for all those wishing to invest in Turkmenistan. Now, what is on these two images? To prove that he's not just talking, but actually doing something, Berdimuhamedov set up a new magazine, a new journal, international journal called Oil, Gas, and Mineral Resources of Turkmenistan. And the mission of this journal is officially defined as follows: positioning Turkmenistan's oil and gas industry as a dynamic, promising, and highly significant element of the global energy system, propagating energy policy of Turkmenistan's leadership and its achievements in the international arena, forming a positive investment image of Turkmenistan, and providing up-to-date information and analysis about the situation in the oil and gas industry of Turkmenistan. Well, obviously, to accomplish all these roles, you need to have like research institutes or agencies, good statistics centers, and in a matter of a couple of years, again, I cannot speak to the quality of exactly what is being produced, but the government of Berdimuhamedov inaugurated a new National Bureau of Statistics, a new Institute for Strategic Planning and Economic Development. He set up, or his government set up, several gas research centers housing modern laboratories for doing research in the area of energy resources, and a number of other institutes. So again, given how close the informational space and it is, and unless and I'm not really connected to the energy field per se, so I haven't really had a chance to speak with the representatives of, for example, Western companies with investments into the energy sector there. So I can't really speak to the quality and effectiveness of all those new institutions and centers and statistics center, but at least because what's of interest to me is the image that is being presented by the government, what's being said and what's being done, and these are the kind of things that's being done. But the government doesn't stop there. It has been really trying, less so in the Western Hemisphere, and much more so in Europe, to carry out a PR campaign to advocate for other sectors of its economy. Again, building on the strengths of Turkmenistan in, for example, cotton industry. It has been taking part in lots of exhibits with products of the cotton producing industry, such as yarn, knitting, denim fabrics, bedding, clothing, textiles, and foods, made out of melons, watermelons, and great variety of seasonal fruits and vegetables. So, and products of their processing have been recently showcased in the European trade fairs. So, we don't really hear much about it in the United States, but I've done extensive searches in pretty much every single major agricultural fair or fairs where those products could be showcased. Turkmenistan would be a part of it. And President Bermuhamedov, who is a head of the International Akhalteke Horse Association. So Akhalteke horse, this desert racing horse, is also a symbol of Turkmenistan, and so he's done a lot of he's dedicated a lot of personal effort, and it's a part of national policy to promote to promote the breeding of this Akhalteke horse and selling those horses for to the European partners for taking part in races and so on and so forth. Okay. Well, I'm going to show you a website of the IAN Travel Company, because one of the things that Turkmenistan has been trying to do is to promote itself as a destination branding. Okay, so it's been trying to create a positive image of the country with the goal of turning a potential visitor into an enthused ambassador for the place. And so destination branding is also part of the nation brand. And this is one of the Central Asian travel agencies. And I liked it because this imagery on the website, it encapsulates very nicely the kind of things that the Turkmenian government promotes as part of the destination brand. So what you see is that it's the Asian ruins, it's the monumental culture. I don't see carpets and jewelry here, but on many other websites you will see pictures of the Turkmen carpet, which is known as the soul of Turkmen, and horses, the Akhalteke horse. So Turkmenistan culture, however, has been reduced to the very simplest and completely depoliticized folkloric expressions, emphasizing Turkmen material and monumental culture, like Asian ruins, traditional crafts, clothing, and food customs, and much less so the corpus of its epical texts, tales, and legends. I would like to say a couple of words about the carpets, and this is something that is going to be linked into this other theme of promoting Turkmenistan as a modern, progressive state. So Turkmen carpet is known, it's also a state image, and it's known as the soul of Turkmen. The president and the government and the representatives of Turkmenistan have been actively promoting Turkmen carpets and carpet making art among the foreign audiences. And I quote, "The carpets are cited for their magical beauty, artistic expressiveness, rich tapestry of colors, and the century-long tradition of carpet weaving." So the Guinness Book of Records contain a record that Turkmenistan is very proud of, and it's also part of this destination imagery. So the largest, the greatest, the biggest carpet woven ever is made in Turkmenistan. So if you ever make it to Tashkent, so the largest handmade carpet in the world, which weighs 1.5 tons and covers an area of 301 square meters. So this masterpiece did enter into the Guinness Book of Records, and it's kept along with thousands of other unique carpets in the Carpet Museum of Ashgabat. So again, so the point I'm trying to make is that this these few items like Asian runes, monuments, monumental culture, and carpets, jewelry, the Akhalteki horse breed are selected to differentiate their country from other tourist destinations to attract tourists. And if you visit any of the tourist websites, another thing that they emphasize is that you should come there not only because of all these great things, but also because we are no different from the West in terms of the accommodations. So they promise you upscale hotels, they promise you, so they try to create an impression that your visit is going to be as uncomplicated as you can think of. So they convey the expectation of a memorable and rewarding travel experience that is uniquely associated with Turkmenistan, but also emphasize the hospitality of Turkmen, so on and so forth. And I'm gonna move on to, I'm gonna skip the Awaza. I'm gonna move on to something different. Okay. Let me ask you this question. So, the Guinness Book of Records contains a record on the largest hand-woven carpet. Turkmenistan has 4 more records in the Guinness Book of Records. And those are all efforts that constitute kind of the strategy of creating progressive, modern image of Turkmenistan. Let me find this quote. So part of this imagery is changing the architectural landscape. So President Niyazov is infamous for a number of architectural projects, but those were viewed and are viewed as an extension of his personality cult and manifestation of his personal megalomania. Contrary to Niyazov's projects, Berdimuhamedov's monumental projects have been framed as the epitome of national historical heritage combined with the highest modern standards. So there's actually an official interpretation of what all those architectural accomplishments mean. So the height of skyscrapers peppered around Turkmenistan's capital are said to symbolize high aspirations and hope for the future shared by the Turkmen people. Modern factories, medical, culture, and sport facilities, new schools, and establishments of higher education epitomize the economic might of Turkmenistan. The speed and spread of the new construction projects are posited as the testament of the nation's horse-speedy development. So, again, the point is that the government is really trying to create a different image, a specific image of a modern, progressive, and I can talk about democracy in a Q&A, I'll just leave it out for the sake of time. So everything that they do is connected to some sort of a theme that project, the height of skyscrapers or modern centers of medicine or culture, and how quickly it's all being built. In the modern airport, it's another thing that I'm not bringing up here, but modern airport facilities, etc. And a part of this grandiose architectural, not campaign, architectural, construction is the construction of a number of projects that's being included into the Guinness Book of Records. Let me ask you, anyone knows what those?
Tallest flagpole?
One of those? Mm-hmm. Okay, so the first one is the fountain complex, and that features the greatest number of fountains, I think like 400. Then the second one is the tallest unsupported flagpole. The third one, you will probably never guess what it is. It's an entertainment center. Okay? So the third project, it's an indoor Ferris wheel built inside a new entertainment center. And then this is the fourth one. It's the largest architectural star built on the facade of the 692 feet television tower. And according to the president, the entry of these projects into the Guinness Book signifies the triumph of the country's grandiose reforms. It proves that the Turkmen people's architectural art has been raised up to the top level. Okay? All right. Now, how effective has the Berdimuhamedov government been in creating this positive image, this nation brand of, Turkmenistan as new Kuwait, as a leader in global energy, transportation security, as a modern, progressive, etc. state? Well, my personal opinion and the opinion of analysts is that all of these reforms aimed at repairing the country's international image have been externally driven. Well, because the purpose of nation brand is to attract resources, attract tourists, and attract soft power to be able to have a say in international politics, especially in regards to different issue areas within global politics, right? So those reforms are externally driven, and therefore, not necessarily therefore, but also superficial. It's been said that, so the nation branding comes from the world of market. And just like a successful marketing campaign requires a company to leave the brand, the international recognition of the state-promoted image is contingent on the consistency of the national brand with the state's practices. So national reputation is buried in the perceptions of the governments and peoples around the world. And it can only be rebuilt slowly and painstakingly by eliminating or altering practices that are inconsistent with the promoted image, and nurturing the traditions that are promoted in this country brand. Because again, by analogy with a firm will never be able to survive if it's just driven by the market rule of profit maximization. There is much more that gets into the longevity of a firm. It's like the social contract with the customers, that brand, about the quality of the product, et cetera, that keeps the customer coming in. So the same applies to the brand of the state, and it can be applied to national brands of states other than Turkmenistan. So for the brand to work, a state has to leave the brand, and the international recognition of the state-promoted image is contingent upon the consistency of what's being said, put out there for external consumption, and and states' practices. And personally speaking, when I was working on this paper, I have an intent to actually go and try, just be a tourist, but also be like a researcher or observer. I really wanted to go to Turkmenistan, and I tried and I give up. I couldn't. So there's still very low penetration of credit cards and mobile phones. There's scant connectivity to the World Wide Web, and high internet fees remain some of the main obstacles to the development of online services and payments. It is still a closed and secretive territory. The access to resources and cultural reaches is hindered by red tape, cumbersome bureaucratic procedures of acquiring visas and permits, as well as very stringent regulations and requirements concerning, where you go, what you want to do. So these are just some of the things that I personally experienced, but there are many more that hinders Turkmenistan's prospects in areas other than tourism. And I would be happy to talk about democracy, et cetera, in the Q&A, but I want to leave some time for Q&A.